be much more difficult. At the same time, we commit fully to responsibility. Martin Arts will not serve alcohol during school hours or school-related functions. Service would be strictly limited to evening or weekend cultural programming with proper licensing, training staff, and strong safety protocols. This structure is proven to work in cultural centers nationwide. It protects students, supports donors, and ensures the center is financially sustainable. This cultural center would be more than a building. It would be a destination, a place where residents can visit, shop, learn, and be entertained. It would strengthen our creative economy, enhance community pride, and provide a home for artistic expression that currently does not exist in our county. I've seen firsthand the impact of the arts in our schools. Both of my daughters grew up here, and both continue to use the skills they developed in the classroom. One designs spaces for homes and businesses, which her work blends creativity and practicality. The other applies creative thinking to her environmental science studies, where imagination is essential for problem solving in real world problems. These are just two examples of how arts education fosters versatile, capable, and inspired adults. Imagine a space that extends the impact to 1,000 more students, a space where creativity sparked in our classrooms has room to grow, a space that strengthens the bond between our schools and our community. We believe this cultural center can and should be that space. By structuring it carefully and responsibly, we can honor the district's priorities while ensuring the center thrives financially, programmatically, and safely. Thank you for your time and your commitment to our students and our community. Martin Arts looks forward to partnering with you to make this vision a reality.
Thank you. Jane Baldridge, followed by Peter Morello.
Thank you all for hearing us today on this very important subject of the High School Arts Center. I am Jane Lawton Baldridge, a professional practicing artist of 5 decades. I'm sometimes asked if I use magic to create my artwork. I do not use magic. I use practice, hard work, and experimentation over and over again. Dancers, musicians, and visual artists all need a place to practice their art. I have been keen on the artist studio spaces in the plan since I first heard about the project, so much so that I probably was a bit of a nuisance to Nancy for a while, asking, when's it going to be ready? The magic that can manifest when you have an incubator space for creatives is larger than the sum of those creating. A central creative space for making and practicing art is a gift to a community, especially one the size of Stewart. Having art in the community makes the residents happier and the children brighter, as many have spoken to already tonight. It takes more than magic, hope, and prayers to survive as an artist, and it takes more than magic to keep an art center open. Lots of hard work is great, but without a plan for support, the dream will be short-lived. The idea that such a gift to the community could be self-sustaining through events is a great plan, but it requires modifying the vision for the property so that it can be used as an event venue for sustainability. So please do not think we creatives make everything with our magic and hard work. It requires a solid plan and follow through. I hope that Martin Arts' vision for the High School Arts Center and all the work that has come already to make this vision a reality will be able to mature to fruition and give the tools to make it successful. Thank you.
Pete Morello, followed by Ted Astolfi.
Hey guys, how are ya? It's great to see you. In the month of December, I used to own 2 UPS stores, so in the month of December, I always wear crazy Christmas stuff. I've sold the UPS stores, but I still have the outfits, so I'm wearing them. So you're welcome. One of the reasons why I'm here is because of this space and the arts. I thought it was insanely important for my children at very young ages to get involved with the arts. Dominic was a visionary. Gia went to Starstruck. Because a lot of people forget that that's really cathartic work, and you get to do that in your off time if mathematics isn't it. So I wanted to foster that in youth just automatically because I found that it worked for me. What I want to do is just do a little bit of reading from my phone, which I normally don't do, but studies show that participation in extracurricular, community-based art, music, theater, and visual art is associated to academic performance and graduation rates, especially for students in lower income backgrounds. Recent literature review concluded that students engaged in extracurricular arts show stronger social and emotional skills, self-regulation, collaboration, and emotional regulation. Community-based and after-school art programs are linked to better long-term youth well-being, better social and emotional health, increased sense of purpose and belonging, and there's a lower risk of behavioral problems. For at-risk youth and lower-income students in particular, arts is exposure to an out-of-school environment that is positive, and it makes them feel like there might be some things to learn outside of school, not just inside those four walls. The evidence suggests that participation outside of regular school hours promotes social and emotional skills, helps students build engagement and self-esteem, and generally is a better academic performance, retention, and it lowers that dropout rate. U.S. Department of Education, Wallace Foundation, National Education of Statistics. There's also a book I read every once in a while that says, "Wine gladdens the human heart." It also says something about enjoying food and drink. And there is somewhere in there was a wedding that didn't have any wine, and he helped out. Being able and responsible with the tools that are giving as an adult helps us tell children how to do it too. Don't punish the leaders that want to inspire by not letting us show how it can be done right. That's not the right choice. And I hope to see you at the bar in Rock of Ages in January, which I'll be in.
Thank you, Pete. Ted Astolfi, followed by Lucy Kresha Bars. I apologize.
You got mine perfectly right. Thank you, Marcia.
Yes, you're good. You're good to go. Sorry, Ted.
No
Yes.
problem. This is why I didn't write a 3-minute speech, because of all these people that went before me, in particular Pete Morello. Thanks for putting me after him. I have no hat. So my name's Ted Astolfi, and I'm here representing the Economic Council of Martin County. And I just wanted to let people know kind of the history. The first major accomplishment that the Economic Council had after they were created in 1985 was the creation of the Arts Council, now Martin Arts. Our organization saw a need for arts and culture in this community that was completely missing at the time, and has evolved tremendously, and you can see all the people here today to demonstrate that. In later years, after the Arts Council got going, there was a vision created for an arts and culture campus. It was led by Peter Cummings. And this is not a new idea. This has been a very long-standing idea since the late 80s. And when the school board moved into this wonderful new facility, it gave the opportunity to use the Stewart High School as the foundation for that vision. And so Martin Arts has been working diligently to raise the money for the steps they've taken thus far. They've been working in good faith under the intent to lease. And I'm really here today to urge you to move forward to negotiate the actual lease to allow them to move forward. I know the alcohol issue has become an issue. I'm also aware that there are paths forward to resolve that issue. There are other organizations that have done it throughout the state. There are ways you can craft very narrow policies for performing arts facilities. Martin Arts has the ability to get a performing arts liquor license, very similar to what the Lyric has, which is only for that purpose. So there isn't a conflict with other organizations that you may or may not want to allow to serve alcohol on premise. So I think there is a path forward. I will just close by saying that I am a very active participant in helping your CTE program, and I constantly talk about STEAM rather than STEM, and I truly believe it. I've been working with manufacturers for 30 years, and those that use the left side of their brain, that artistic side, are better performers in manufacturing. It's very difficult to work on a CNC machine in the room next door with Spam if you can't have that vision of what's going to come out of that piece of material, and if you don't understand X, Y, and Z axis, and you only do that by accessing that creative side of your mind. And that's why this arts programs are so important. And I really believe that this facility, this new Arts and Culture Campus, will truly push this whole effort forward in our community. So thank you for your consideration.
Lucy, followed by Allison Kaiser.
Good afternoon. My name is Lucy Keshavars. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to all of you today. I am an artist that lives in northern Palm Beach County. I count myself extremely fortunate to have worked with the residents of Old Palm City, Martin Arts, and Martin County staff from 2015 through 2024 to fundraise, engage the community, design, and construct the EcoArt stormwater project by the name of Ripple as a drop of water becomes a river, which is located in Old Palm City. I say that I am fortunate for many reasons, and especially because, due to the Ripple project, I had the opportunity to spend time here. The city of Stuart and Martin County have the charm that feels like home to me. As a native Floridian with a bloodline that goes back to the original Spanish families of St. Augustine, I have a heightened sensitivity to the past, present, and future. In addition, I grew up in Titusville, Florida, during the start of the space program. I reveled in the modern technology and the science surrounding me, while being able to see the last little bit of multi-generational small-town charm that remained. My factual and logical side wants to take a deep dive into the amazing and collaborative process that has taken place since 2017 between Martin Arts and the school district. How the lease will be a revenue generator for the school district. How the arts campus will expand the economic benefits of downtown businesses. How the arts campus will save a historic building. How the research indicates the great and many benefits the arts provide, ... While I am sure you know all of the above mentioned benefits are true, what I ask you to lean into are the huge benefits the project will provide to our children. To be surrounded by history important enough to save and use. To experience many arts disciplines in one place is extraordinary. And to experience all the above in a multi-generational, charming, and safe place supports healthy minds and good citizenship. While I realize that serving of alcohol has become a roadblock for some on the board, I ask you to reconsider by looking at the examples where it is working and the contract language Nancy has provided over the years. This is an important step so that history can be saved and the arts can benefit our children and community. Thank you.
Thank you. Allison Kaiser, followed by Nick Capozzi.
Good evening, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to come talk to you about all the potential that the arts campus at the Martin High School presents to us. I'm Allison Kaiser. I am the executive director for the Atlantic Classical Orchestra, and we perform in both Vero Beach and Stuart. We're a substantial arts organization. We employ over 60 musicians each year, and we've been a substantial contributor to the economic development and prosperity of both areas where we perform. When I arrived here, I'm just about into my first year with the ACO, but when I arrived here, one of my first meetings was with Nancy Terrell. And one of the first things that she told me about was this project whereby the high school was going to become a new arts campus. That is incredibly exciting to me and to our organization. We hope to be one of the new tenants in that facility and hope to be able to bring a brand new, flourishing arts education program with us, in addition to our regular large-scale concerts. Over 90% of our musicians are resident to the area between Treasure Coast and Palm Beach County, and we have a very substantial employment payroll with this large musician corps that we engage. And so many of them are looking for other opportunities outside of their performances with orchestras up and down the area to be able to give back to the community and to ensure that music education is something that's very strong. I was so heartened to hear the comments about STEAM and about how the arts are going to impact education in this area. Prior to coming here to the Treasure Coast, I've been involved in arts building projects, including the New World Symphony's new campus in Miami Beach, the Broward Performing Arts Center Authority building the Broward Performing Arts Center, and the Kentucky Center for the Arts in Kentucky, which is where I grew up. In all of these areas, I have seen how the region, the immediate downtown area, and the communities flourish because of creating a hub where all of this energy can come together from all of the art forms, where great collaboration can happen and new ideas for new projects and new learning opportunities can flourish. So I hope that you all will consider not just the immediate benefits of arts education and more activity, but how it will become a placemaking project that will create a much stronger and more creative and electrifying opportunity for Stewart. Thank you.
Thank you. Neil Capozzi, followed by J. Paul Moore.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Neil Capozzi, and I have served on the board of Martin Arts Foundation for a number of years, and I currently serve on the committee to develop the high school project. I was part of the committee that created the business plan as well as the function plan of the facility. And from our experience of traveling around the state, to various other states, talking to arts organizations, it's very important that there be a component where we can serve alcohol. I know it's a sticking point for the board, but I hope you will reconsider. I would also like to take a minute before I close. Anyone in the audience who is in favor of this project, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Raise your hand. Thank you.
So J. Paul Moore, and our last speaker is Linda Raymore.
I'm J. Paul Moore. I am a local real estate broker with Engel and Volkers. Our building is right across High School Avenue, is that it? From the school. So my window looks out at the decrepit old high school. I want to ask a question. What's happening down on Ocean Boulevard? At the old high school, once an ancient star. We need this to happen in our community. We have musicians, we have artists. Okay, maybe I'm not one of them, but this needs to happen to develop our community. I work with individuals and families that are moving into Martin County. I know a lot of people don't like that as well. But one of the key elements that we have in Stewart and in Martin County is a prevalence of arts, and people are attracted to that. It makes our community better, and it attracts the right kind of people to our community as well. So I just encourage you to find the guardrails, define what needs to occur for this exception to take place for Martin Arts and really for our county. Thank you so much.
Linda Raymore is our final speaker.
Well, obviously, from that last polling, you know that I'm in favor of this 100%. My name's Linda Raymore. I actually was involved with the Economic Council and establishing the Art Council. We called it the Art Council then, it's now Martin Arts, back in the 80s. I took a brief time off, had my child, and got involved with the Treasure Coast Youth Symphony. And for 17 years, I was the executive director of the Treasure Coast Youth Symphony, and I hope you had the opportunity to hear them. It was very professional. I am trying not to make this long, and I didn't intend to speak, but the one thing that I did, we had performances at the Lyric Theater, we had performances at the EC Campus Theater in West Palm, we had performances up in Vero. Anytime, and we made an effort to only go to at least 3 professional venues at the time, because we wanted our students, many and most of who came from Martin County, to have the experience of what it was like to play in a real orchestra and to go through everything that a real professional musician would go through. So it was a great opportunity for these students. A lot of them now have wonderful careers, families, children, and it's wonderful to see them. And it's also wonderful to see that they're still playing their instruments, many of them. My own daughter teaches music theory now at a university. So it's really important that the children of the community have this opportunity. Now, go back to the venues. One of the first things that I was asked at these venues, if this was available in the first place, the venue would say, can we serve alcoholic beverages at your concerts? And my reaction was, absolutely, because we were trying to provide a professional experience for these kids. And it was important that they learned how to behave, understand how other people behaved at concerts, and performances in general. So from that, I think there is no problem whatsoever as far as any impression that children may have because alcoholic beverages are served. I will say this, quite often people did not have anything other than a Coke or glass of water, but often people had a glass of wine, and it's a social event. And the social thing is there and extremely important now when everybody's on social media and not meeting each other in person. And this is a way to bring them into a personal situation. The arts, I'm back now doing my art, which I forewent while I was doing the Youth Symphony because I was also working full-time. But I'm a visual artist now, and I have been working consistently for the last 6 years since we retired, my husband and I, and currently have an exhibit at the Martin Arts right now in the gallery. So it is very important that this facility be built. I don't have a studio space. I use my patio for my studio space, and I think many other people do. And it would also be nice to have some extra gallery space, a place where a few students who are fantastic musicians can go to have small concerts. So yes, please, go about this, do it, because it's been a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have one more speaker, Kathy Spurgeon.
I'm not going to sing. My name is Kathy Spurgeon. Good afternoon to Mr. Main and the members of the board. I've spent an inordinate amount of time and years rehabilitating for reuse one of your former schoolhouses, the original Hobe Sound Elementary School in the Zeus Park neighborhood of Hobe Sound, now known as the Apollo School. I'm here, however, not as president of the Apollo School Foundation, but as an alumna of the historic school, Stewart High School. I did a little bit of research, and I think when I graduated, I don't think most of you were born yet, so you got to trust me. I'm interested in and supportive of the rehab and reuse of the beautiful, iconic building on East Ocean Boulevard. Kudos to Martin Arts for taking on this formidable task, and thank you to the school district for realizing the value and merits of preserving the site's buildings. I'm here with two asks. Having access to the full terms of the proposed lease between the school board and Martin Arts is critical to moving forward and generating funding. And the second ask is that the board consider an arrangement that allows alcohol to be sold at fundraisers and events during non-school hours. Perhaps, unfortunately, alcohol service is inherent to events such as weddings and receptions, as well as fundraisers and other events, how well I know. It's fundamental to the long-term financial viability of this project. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes public comment. We will now go on to the discussion items, which first on the agenda is the Arts Council. And I think we have some key things that we will be talking about. One is serving alcohol. The other is holding the property indefinitely. And then, potentially other options that might exist. So I know Mr. Harmon is on the phone, our attorney.
Good afternoon. Yes, I'm on the phone.
Hello?
Yes, I'm here. Do you hear me okay?
We can't hear him. I can barely hear him.
How about now? Is this any better?
Oh, that's better. Terry, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody, and I've listened to all the comments. My name is Terry Harmon. I am an attorney in Tallahassee, Florida with Sniffen and Spellman, and I have represented the school board and Superintendent Maine in various matters for a number of years now. So good afternoon to everybody in attendance, the board, as well as superintendent.
Thank you, Terry. And can you, I know that you have an opinion on the use of alcohol. I know we've had this conversation about other entities as well, and if you could share that, please.
Yes, I'm happy to do that. I know this is something that has come up in the past. I believe it was the beginning of the year and a little bit into the summer. And so I think it'd be good if I kind of share just some reminders of some of the things that were, I would say, concerns that were addressed previously, so that the board can kind of refresh its recollection of those items. I'll say I've read the intent to lease agreement as well as the two amendments to it. Just a couple of things to point out. And first, it's not the actual lease, as we all know. That's the purpose of that is part of what we're discussing today. But a couple of notes that I put on that I saw from the intent to lease was one of the purposes of the intent to lease is to offer educational opportunities and to enhance educational opportunities for Martin County students. So it's not strictly a separate private entity operating a private purpose. The intent to lease does indicate that part of the plan of operation will include educational events for Martin County students at the property. The Arts Foundation also, in the intent to lease, is required to abide by all local laws, policies, and rules. And so with that, that includes the board's policies. And that's the first area where I mentioned in the past, and trying to be consistent with previous issues, where we run into just a little bit of a hiccup. And that's because of our board policies 9160, which is public participation at school events, and our public attendance at school events, and our policy 5330. Now, policy 5330 falls within, as you all know, members of the board, the student drug prevention policy. But there's language in that policy that establishes a drug-free zone, and the term drug, just so the board is aware, in the policy itself includes alcoholic beverages. But in that policy 5530, the board's language is that there is a drug-free zone within 1,000 feet of any facility used by the district for educational purposes. I'm not a surveyor. I defer to the real property experts out there. I simply used Google Maps to just get a rough idea of taking the corner of the current building where the Arts Foundation will go and running a straight line to some sections of Stewart Middle School, and it's within 300-400 feet. So that's one initial concern. Again, that is a student policy, but you do have a policy that does establish that zone. The other one, which I think is a little bit more applicable, is Policy 9160, which is your public attendance at school events. And while this board policy appears to relate to when school events are being done by the district, there is still language in there that says, and I'll paraphrase, no alcoholic beverage may be possessed, consumed, or distributed at any function occurring on district premises. And as I understand the lease agreement or proposed lease agreement, this is property that will be leased away potentially by the school board for a number of years. It will not be a school board building. It will not be run by the school board, but it is still school property. If it is leased, the board is still the real property owner of it. It is on the same parcel as Stewart Middle School. So you've got some policy issues in there. I will not tell you that there is an absolute prohibition on it. There is nothing in Florida law that absolutely prohibits a school board from engaging in this type of activity. But there are a number of, as I mentioned before, I use the term hiccups. I would rather change that to concerns. It's close proximity to the middle school. You've got a couple of policies that, depending on how those are interpreted, may need to be addressed. And then one of the biggest issues is kind of the unknown for me is if the intent to lease speaks to there being opportunities and educational opportunities for Martin County students, if this building is going to have student learning occurring or classrooms or performances, that may bring up some of our other drug-free workplace type policies that do prohibit alcoholic substances being in the workplace. That was one of the issues that we had previously when we were talking about another organization wanting to have a similar arrangement. If you recall, in that circumstance, there were, I believe, 3 classrooms in that building that were dedicated for student learning. That was a concern. I can't really opine on what the city of Stewart will say. Their municipal code has some 500-foot regulations. One of the public speakers earlier was correct. The city can give waivers. They can give permits. That is up to the city, not up to the school board, as well as the county, if the county has any regulations in place. Those would be between the applicant and the city or the county. One note that I would say is if we are still we being the board is still the owner of the property on which the Arts Foundation is located, and there is going to be alcohol served and an application needs to be submitted, the board would likely have to be a co-applicant on that. And so all that being said, again, not saying there's an absolute bar, but there are a number of things that raise some red flags along the way. And if any board member, of course, any questions about anything I just said, or if I need to expand, I'm happy to do so to help illustrate the point a little bit more.
Thank you, Terry. I will ask the board if you have any questions for Mr. Harmon at this point. No? Okay. So Terry, just hang on just in case anything comes up, because I think we need to talk about other issues. Just so the public knows, we are not voting on anything tonight. This is just a discussion with the board. We are getting all the facts and the information, and if there is something to vote on, it will come to us at a regular meeting. So the intent to lease or in the future, a lease would come before the board at a regular school board meeting. And our next meeting is next week, but at this point is not on the agenda, correct? So it will be advertised, and you'll know about it before it comes before us to vote on anything. Are there any other questions or comments from the board that you might have that Mr. Harmon can answer or the superintendent about the intent to lease?
Hi, Terry. It's Amy Pritchett.
Hi, Ms. Pritchett.
Hi. Can you distinguish between intent to lease and lease agreement?
Yeah. As I read it, the intent to lease is it's memorializing some of the terms about what the parties want to do. This was executed back in 2022. And the idea there was, look, this is, and I'm going to use this very informally, although I know you all are sitting in a very formal session. It's an agreement to agree to something in the future. So the intent to lease still contemplates that there's an actual lease agreement. And per the Second Amendment to it, there needs to be an absolute written lease agreement presented to the board by the end of the year. And that lease agreement needs to be mutually agreed to by both parties. And so I don't view the intent to lease itself is not a lease. It's essentially an agreement to agree on something in the future.
So a lease agreement must come by the end of this year?
Yeah, as I read through everything, my understanding is that, that second, it's titled and it's on the agenda, the Second Amendment to intent to lease was an extension of the deadline for the Arts Foundation to deliver its intent to proceed to the board by the end of December. So I'm not sure, again, I don't know if that's been done or not, if that intent to proceed has been submitted by December 31st, but there is a full-blown lease agreement that will need to be drafted and agreed to by the parties before anything is enforceable.
Thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Moriarty? In general.
I don't know who to address this to, either the superintendent or maybe Nancy might be able to muster an answer through her illness. But I would just like to know, where are we at financially on the project? Because, I mean, I love what I'm hearing, and you came and presented, and I mean, it's a phenomenal project. I mean, I can't be a bigger fan of this thing, but maybe you could share where we're at on the process of raising money and where, how far along we are. That would be helpful. Thanks.
Be happy to. And first of all, Tyson and Mr. Waters and I and our attorneys have been working. We've had a draft lease agreement. It was required that we have a draft prepared by to start negotiating, and we have one on paper, which we thought today was sort of part of the, we asked for this meeting back in November, was to start to work on those terms so that we could execute a lease per the time frame of December 31st. The financial side of things is we have raised over $500,000, both in cash and in kind, that has paid for all the planning work that has been done to get us to this stage. Our intent is to go forward with some lead gifts this season that would allow us to start construction on phase one, which are the two 1950s classroom buildings out in front, hopefully by the end of next year, if not the beginning of the following year. But without these terms in place, the donors are also extremely hesitant to offer their commitment. It's kind of like being an investor in any other kind of commercial project. You know, until they know what the terms are, they don't know if they can say yes or no.
Okay.
But we have a significant amount of interest.
Okay. And the second question is for you. It's about the alcohol. And as someone who goes to a lot of local events, I totally see the validity of it and why it's important. And I've advocated for that for other groups that have come before here. But after hearing Mr. Harmon's description, it seems like it's going to be a tall order. I mean, you have to change policy. You have students there. I mean, that seems like a insurmountable climb at this point. So could you continue this project without alcohol and still be successful, do you think? Or is that the deal breaker there?
I really believe it is a deal breaker. I mean, when we started talking about this in 22, 23 and had the conversations, there was not a single conversation ever that said, we know this is going to be a challenge, you know, we need to figure out a way to make the alcohol component of this work. So it has been part of the conversation from the beginning. I know that there have been transitions in leadership, staffing, all of that, but somewhere that critical piece of our business plan for the project got lost by the wayside. It is a deal breaker, in fact.
Gotcha.
But we're also open to compromise and trying to figure out a way where we could both win and still have the project move forward.
Gotcha. And thank you for being here. Obviously, you're under the weather. I just want to say this is, it's a tremendous project. As someone who has a daughter at Starstruck, and I understand the need for the arts, and I see the challenges here. So it definitely tears me both ways, because I think this would be an incredible thing for our community. But there's obviously some challenges both with the alcohol and financially to get this done. So that's just my 2 cents on it. Thanks.
Madam Chair, you had said that there were options that we could discuss.
Well, I want to make a couple of points. So we actually started this conversation not in 2022, but probably I was trying to go back and look at notes that maybe it was 2018 or 19 that we began this conversation. I know the majority of the people here were not here at that time, but I'll tell you some of my concerns. The alcohol is a concern. I'm not sure that we can get over that hurdle from a school perspective and the proximity to Stewart Middle School. But it's also the length of time that we're holding a school district asset. We are still taking care of that building. We are still supporting it, paying the electric bill. I know that there was a pipe that burst that we had to fix. It's not something, and holding the property for that amount of time is concerning. And in the 7 years that this project has been talked about, and the fact that only $500,000 has been raised is concerning, that it's going to be that much longer. And as everyone knows, as a school district, our enrollment has decreased significantly. We are down significantly. We have properties that I feel, and we'll have these discussions in the future, that we need to look at probably selling, because we're not utilizing them, but we're tasked with taking care of them, which is a financial burden, and it impacts what we can offer students as well. So I think we have a lot of issues to talk about as a board before we commit to a 50-year lease, which is with really no, we also, I get it, the donors need some clarity on the lease, but so do we as the property owner. We need some assurances that you're going to be able to raise $20 to $30 million for this project, because that's the cost of the project. So while I understand both sides, I was born and raised here in Martin County. In fact, my mom attended Stewart High School, and I want that building to be there for our community. But we also have a fiscal responsibility to the taxpayers and to the students and teachers and our staff in the school district. So I think we have a lot to talk about. One of the things, I did meet with Nancy, and one of the things I recommended was selling the property. And I know we had the same issue with, on the property with the Boys and Girls Club as well. And that offer has been made to them as well, to consider purchasing the property. I have Dr. Miller and her team are in the process of pulling up, I think it was back in 2018 when we started this discussion. We had some appraisals, surveys. I know all of that would have to be updated, but I would like for the board to consider that we direct our staff to really look at what the property is worth, because we do, again, have a fiduciary responsibility to taxpayers, but I think that we make that offer. It takes us as a school district out of the equation, and then it would just be really the city of Stewart and the county if there are any barriers that could exist for serving alcohol, and it kind of takes us out of that. So that's just some ideas that I personally had.
I agree with that. I feel like that's the best scenario. I don't think that any of us want to put a damper on this project. I think we all love this project, and to see that come to fruition and what it could do and offer for our kids and our community, I think it's wonderful. But it does come down to some legality issues, and also making sure that we're being wise with taxpayer dollar. If you take us out of the equation, just like Mrs. Powers said, and offer this where this is completely on them now, it would be theirs. They could do whatever they needed to do. I think that that would be the wisest decision for all of us.
Ms. Pritchett?
So I'm in a tough spot here. I'm an ex officio advisor for the Arts Council, and I love what you're doing, and I love that this is happening. But I have to worry about, number one, changing policy, number two, setting precedent so that the next person who comes in and wants to do this, we then have to allow it. That is where I find myself in all of this, that we want what's best for our students, and we want to give them a positive message. We want the arts to continue. We want the arts to thrive. But I really like the idea of Martin Arts just taking over the property by buying it. And then the school can still partner and still be involved, but we don't have to change our policies, and we don't have to go against the recommendation of our attorney. And we don't have to worry that we are doing anything that could harm the students. So I agree with my board that this is a wonderful project, but there's a lot of mountains to climb in order for us to allow it, and it does set up what I call a precedent for the next. Then the Boys and Girls Club may come back, and they're gonna say, well, and we've already been through that. So the student safety and health and well-being is the first and foremost concern of mine. And changing our policy would, I believe, put that in jeopardy. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? I just would like to get consensus from the board if you would like for Dr. Miller and her team to pursue having the appraisals updated on the value of the property, what that looks like, surveys, that type of thing, because I know, I can't recall if the survey of because it's all of that, the high school, our Stewart Middle School campus, and then also the Boys and Girls Club were all part of one main piece of property, and it was all contiguous. And now that we have leased to the Boys and Girls Club, I can't recall if there was a survey done or if the survey for the whole campus has been updated, with the construction work that we've done at Stewart Middle. So whatever we need to do, if the board agrees with that we kind of look at that. I've asked for the information already. I know they're in the process of compiling it, what we did way back in like 2018. Obviously, things have changed quite significantly, but we can update that information and then have that conversation with the Arts Council and the Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah, I'd be good with that. I mean, but the intent is to sell the property to the Arts Council? Is that,
Well, I think that
or at least first?
that's
That's
an
our first
option
look?
for sure.
Okay.
And I think the same proposal was made, we have kind of had those discussions with the Boys and Girls Club too. Like, if they would like to purchase a property, again, it kind of takes us out of it.
So just so the public's clear, the idea is to, rather than having all this red tape with us owning the property, if someone else was able to own it like you guys, then you could serve alcohol and have your own rules. Is that the understanding?
But
That's
they
how
would-
we kind of get around a lot of the alcohol type things.
They would still have to abide by the ordinances of the city, which is, I can't remember if it's 500 feet, within 500 feet of a school is, I don't know. We don't know how that would be granted or not, but that's something I think that needs to be investigated if that's the path that, by the Arts Council, if they decided, hey, we're going to purchase the property, would the city of Stuart grant that variance? I don't know. So what do you guys think? Should we move forward or updating?
I would like you to direct Dr. Miller to start the process of getting the value of the property. That's a great idea.
I mean, I think we're going to need to have it regardless of the outcome, whatever happens. I know we've talked with the superintendent about multiple properties that the school district owns that are not being utilized, that we look at all those properties in general, and that all is going to come back to the school board in 2026, not just this property specifically, but there's a couple of others. I know there's one out in Indiantown that the Village of Indiantown is interested in, so that we're not utilizing, so we just need to have those conversations as a group, and I think this will be part of that package.
Madam Chair, I was just going to thank you for the clarification. If we direct Dr. Miller to move forward with that, can we go ahead and ask that the appraisals be done of all of the available properties so that when that comes forward, we're not seeking separate approval for that? We can get started on all of it.
Yeah, and I really think that we should focus on the ones that people are interested in first. The one being the Village of Indiantown, and then obviously the Arts Council, and possibly we should reach out to the Boys and Girls Club as well to see if that's something that they're interested in, and then take an inventory of what else we have out there that we could possibly liquidate. All right. Thank you, Mr. Harmon, for being here today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if I could, on my parting piece, just to clarify, I didn't want to misspeak on something. The December 31st deadline that I referenced, this goes to a question that Ms. Pritchett asked too. That's the deadline for the notice of intent. The intent to lease does specify that subsequent to that, there's a 30-day window if there was a lease to be proposed to be negotiated. So just wanted to make that clear. But other than that, thank you very much for allowing me to be on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no additional comments from the board, we're going to move on to item 5.02, topics for the February 17th joint meeting with the city, county, and the Village of Indiantown.
Is now exiting.
Do you all have any specific topics that you would like to be covered during that meeting? Presentations or otherwise? Superintendent Maine, do you have anything specific that you would like to?
That would be a good meeting to give a year-end wrap-up. I think kind of some of the things, closing out 2025 and items that we're working on for 2026 going into the end of the year. And then typically we would give, if the board did not have any other topics that they want to discuss, we would give an update on facilities at that time. The timing may align well with some of the topics that we're discussing this evening anyways on what properties are underutilized and what potentially you all are thinking of doing with those properties.
Yeah, and I also, I think I shared with you, I just saw that there was a new development application that went in for the big, larger development that's out by South Fork High School, the four-way stop at South Fork High School, Bridge Road and Pratt Whitney. And that could potentially impact our enrollment at Crystal Lake. So I just want to I would like an update from the county where that is, how that's, maybe we can get some sort of information on where they are in the process. I heard that I know the signs are up again. And, how are we planning? What would it look like? What's the student generation? Our own staff, I know, could probably get that information based on our student generation rate. But what we're finding, though, is that when we talk about student generation and the rate that we've used, we are not generating the number of students that have been in the past. It feels like, there are many factors for decreased enrollment, including birth rate, age of the families that are buying at the homes or that can afford the homes in Martin County, to be honest. So they're not as much impact as have been in past years. So maybe we need to look at that as well, because I think that's going to be, but I think I keep saying Citrus Grove, Crystal Lake, we need to make that consideration as we talk about other issues with K-8 conversions and all the things that we've been talking about, and enrollment at our schools, so we can kind of collectively have all that information.
I have something too, Madam Chair.
Sure, of course.
And I would like to bring up at that meeting, possibly putting in a school zone at Citrus Grove Elementary. I've brought this up to the county and have not seen any action yet, but the parents and staff at Citrus Grove in my district are very concerned about the cars just whizzing by out in front of there, and thinks that it would be an obvious place for a school zone. So with having the county there, I would like to broach that subject to see where they're at in that process.
Yeah, and I think that you bring up a good point. We also need to find out what are the rules for creating a school zone. Are there, are there kids crossing the road? Do we have a controlled area? Is there a crosswalk? There's many things that go into creating a school zone, so let's find out what that is, and then we can be armed with all that information to present to the county.
Yeah, because there are people crossing the road there, and the SRO at the school literally has to park his car with the flashers on in front of the school to hopefully slow down traffic, because people see the flashers and then say, oh, we should slow down. But it's that bad of a problem because people are just whizzing by there because there's no school zone. So it's definitely a safety issue there. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes.
Is there any benefit to talking about Schools of Hope at the joint meeting? I didn't know, because it's becoming a little bit of a chatter. What is it? What's it about? What are we doing about it? It's just a suggestion. I just didn't know if it's too iffy at this point, and we're not really affected.
To date, we have not received any applications for Schools of Hope. And I think there's movement there, and until we kind of see how things settle out, I am open to whatever direction the board would like to give us, certainly open to that, but I just personally do not feel right now would be the time to bring that topic up until we have strong, concrete.
Yeah, and I think there's an appetite for making some corrections and some changes to correct what I don't think was the full intent of what Schools of Hope were going to be. So I think there is some appetite in the legislature. And maybe we will need some support if we have other elected officials supporting the new. But I don't know, I obviously, if anybody asks, I think we can explain what it is and what the position of our board is moving forward. All right, we're moving on to school board policies. Does anybody have questions? I know we can go through each one. If you have any questions about 6.01, which encompasses policy 1121.01, 3121.01, and 4121.01, background screening and employment history checks. No questions or comments on that? Okay, perfect. Item 6.02, which is policies 1213, 3213, 4213, student supervision and welfare. Ms. Roberts submitted a comment on this, and it says, item F in 1213 speaks to, an administrator shall notify the parent of the student if there is a change in the student's services or monitoring related to the student's mental, emotional, or physical health or well-being. In accordance with the Parents' Bill of Rights, notify might not be appropriate language by bypassing the need for parental consent. So I do think that we need to, I believe she is correct, that it needs to be shall notify the parent, and we will obtain parental consent. Okay. All right, 6.03 is policy 3139, educator misconduct. Any questions or comments? Okay. 6.04, policy 5136, wireless communication devices. Any comments? 6.05, policy 5223, absences for religious instruction. Ms. Roberts submitted item A, which is new language, states, the signed written request shall include the following. A statement attesting that the religious instruction is not provided at a time that conflicts with the student's attendance at school. She believes the correct language should be, religious instruction is provided at a time that conflicts with the student's attendance at school. If the instruction isn't conflicting with attendance, then this policy isn't needed. So if and I agree, so if a student is absent for a religious reason that conflicts with their attendance in school, then they would be excused, correct? So we just need to work on that language, on how we need to, I'm not sure that it should say.
In the original Neola language, it was that way. In the new update, Neola has changed it, so we may be able to shift back to the original language to clean that up. If the board would like, we can work through that in the appropriate language that it should be.
Well, I just think it's as simple as taking out, in the new language, it says attesting that the religious instruction is provided at a time that conflicts with the student's attendance at school. So you're just simply taking out the word not. Okay, 6.06, policy 5410.01, promotion, acceleration, placement, and retention. Any questions? Okay. 6.07, 5600, student discipline. Any questions or comments? Okay, Ms. Roberts says, in the middle of page 2, deals with when a meeting with a parent does not resolve the issue in item B, does not resolve the issue in item B, requiring that the child that the child study team must implement the following: a student evaluation for alternative education programs. In accordance with the Parents' Bill of Rights, should evaluations of students require parental consent? And the answer is yes. So we should add the parental consent for the student evaluation. 6.08, 6661, purchase of instructional materials. Any questions? 6.09, policy 7540.02, web content, apps, and services. Any questions, comments? 6.10, 8452, automated external defibrillators. Questions, comments? Just stop me if you do. I'm just going to read through these until I get to the comments.
Keep going.
6.11, 8462, student abuse, abandonment, and neglect. Seeing no questions. 6.12, policy 8470, registered sexual predators and sex offenders. Okay, seeing no comments. 6.13, 9200, volunteers. Okay. And 6.14, 9800, charter schools. Ms. Roberts says, the bottom of page 2 in application procedure, the first sentence states, potential applicants should send letters notifying the board of their intent to submit an application to open a public charter school no later than July 1st. I believe that sentence needs further language that links July 1st to the proposed opening date of the charter school. Obviously, an application in June of a certain year would not be appropriate for an opening in August of the same year. Perhaps adding language not later than July 1st, years prior to the proposed opening date. So I just think we need to check on the statute on that and what the requirements are before we require them to submit it years in advance.
Yeah.
So let's figure that one out, and if there is a change, if staff could bring that forward in the next review, that would be great. Okay, next up is open to the board. Comments? Nothing? Okay. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.